All of our readings this morning are about restoration or reformation or being being brought again to a place that's familiar but not quite the same. I was talking to Kirsten about this sermon on my way down on our car ride down today, and she, honest as she always is, she said, "Oh, that sounds like it'd be kind of a downer sermon today." And I said, "No, I don't think so. I think there's something going on here. But there's that struggle, isn't it? Um, between being restored, but when you get there, it's not quite what you thought. It's like they say, you can't go home again. You can physically go there, but it's not quite the same. And so I want to lean into our readings today and this time of preaching with that idea that yes, it's not going to be the same, but something pretty great might be there, even more than we imagine. And so I start out by asking a question that has been asked of me lately. I want to share it with all of you. For what do you hope in this time? For what do you hope? This time of pandemic, this time in which we had previously hoped that it would be done and over by now, but then there was that nasty little thing called the Delta variant, and it sort of moved us into whole new uncharted territories again, pandemic-wise. For what do you hope in the midst of really profound societal change that continues to go along around us? For what do you hope for people in our society together? And all the different ways vast numbers of people are expressing, sometime now for the first time, look, I'm here. Do you see me? Why do you treat me this way? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Do you know me? Can you love me? And economic change and transition. Great upheaval in our labor market, in our supply chains. Things that are going to take years to get sorted out. What do you hope for in the midst of all of this tumult all around us? You know, I'm not saying anything you don't already know, but folks, the past is gone. Whether that's for us as individuals or us as a church community, the past is gone. And I think you can agree with me that we're not quite sure what the future is going to hold. We're in this in-between place, this kind of place that's right there at the doorway, and you're not quite in, you're not quite out, you're not quite sure what's coming down the road, but you know you can't go back. That's the place we're in. Now, if that's a downer, to just recognize that, so be it. But I also have to say that because we're in this place, there is a freedom for God to do some pretty amazing things in our lives. And that's what I want to hope for in this time. For what do you hope? That God does some pretty amazing things. The first reading that Alan brought to us is from the time of the exile, from Jeremiah, when 2 times God's people had been swept up out of their homeland and deposited in strange and foreign places. 2 times they had their lives turned upside down. And the hope for them was that God would bring them back to where they had once lived. They're scattered. And yet, did you catch that at the beginning as Alan read it? There's this urgent joy in their mood. Sing aloud with gladness, Jeremiah writes. Raise shouts to the chief of nations. Proclaim, give praise. Say to God, save, O God. No matter how far away from their homeland they were, no matter how scattered they were, there was this hope that God would bring them home. They were stressed, they were harried, they were weary, and yet they were able to say, we're going to go back. We may go back weeping, those in labor, those blind, those lame, a great company. God is going to come back and bring us all home. God says, by the brooks of water, I'll lead them on straight paths. They will be back by the one who loved us, the one who cares for us as a parent loves and cares for a child. This is my hope, that God can see us, know us, and lead us, and love us as a parent does a child. I believe God is doing that, but it will be different. Oh, it will be different. How many of you remember car rides as a child? Okay, you see where I'm going with this, all right? Car rides as a child, and now in my day, yes, I can say in my day, we didn't even have to wear seatbelts back then. My sister and I would be placed in the back seat, and we'd often be out on trips for hours and hours. You remember what that was like, fighting with your sibling in the back seat? You're young, you're not home anymore, which is where you really wanted to be, and your parents may have told you where you're going, but you have no idea where that is or how to get there. There was no GPS on your iPhone in those days. Probably maybe a dusty old map in the glove compartment. There was no clear sense of direction. And there you are, stuck in the back seat, elbowing. Did you ever have that imaginary line down the middle of the back seat that you or your sibling could not cross? We had one of those. What I learned in those days was that the sooner you fell asleep, the sooner the whole ordeal would be over. And so there we were, my sister and I, in the back seat, fighting to go to sleep. That's what it feels like to me today. This pandemic is like this backseat car journey. And the best coping mechanism I've been able to come up with during it is to fight to go to sleep there in the back seat and wait for it to be over. And then there's this terrible realization. I'm not a child anymore. None of us are. We can't go to sleep because you know what? We are all the parents driving the car. And falling asleep in that moment and that position of responsibility, it's dangerous for everybody. So hear these words. As much change that is going on around us, and as much as we would hope it all to be over, folks, we have responsibility to address some of these issues that are going on in our time. And sleep is not an option. Mindfulness and wakefulness is. Now, I got to confess, Psalm 26 that Alan read next does not help my case this morning, because the psalmist keeps saying things like, the Lord restores our fortunes, laughter, shouts of joy. The Lord's done great things for us. Restore us to what was once, O Lord. And I keep telling you and myself, it ain't gonna happen. There they are in the psalm, weeping tears and singing songs of joy, weeping because there's such a joyful harvest. And you know what? I believe that. I believe that no matter how troubling or topsy-turvy the life all around us is, and how much we really just want to fall asleep, I do believe that God's going to restore our fortunes, but God's going to make sure that it is, maybe, dare I say it, not the same, but maybe even better than before. Think about that. Better than before. Where everyone, no matter their gender, no matter their economic background, no matter their identity or orientation, everybody will be able to say, I'm seen, I'm known, and I'm loved, just as I am. So in the midst of all this reaching around in the dark, reaching around and seeking that which is familiar, God keeps saying, wake up. Wake up. New things are afoot. I'm here with you to see you, to know you, and to love you. Kirsten and I went out to dinner and a date on Friday night. We went and ate together and did something we hadn't done for, gosh, it seems like 2 years. In fact, it is 2 years. We went to a movie. We actually sat in a movie theater in a chair with other people. It was a very strange thing. And as the lights went down and the movie started, I had this sense like I'm reaching around in the dark and this seems familiar, but it doesn't seem quite right. I'm not sure what's happening. And I was waiting for God to tell me that things were going to be okay. And just to ensure that I played my part in it, I didn't take my mask off. I kept it on throughout the whole movie. One of my car rides as a child was from Astoria to Hillsboro. That's in Oregon. For those of you who are non-Oregonians, it's about an hour and a half car ride over the Coast Range into the Willamette Valley, into the outskirts of Portland. Fought with my sister for a while. We got the imaginary line going. We both fell asleep, and we woke up at my aunt and uncle's for Thanksgiving. Jumped out of the car, ran up to the door, began knocking on it because I love going to my aunt and uncle's house in Hillsboro for Thanksgiving. It was the best thing. But the best moment, always, is as my uncle flung wide the door, and as we stood on his front porch and my aunt came up, I knew that no matter what else happened that whole Thanksgiving weekend, I was here with someone who could see me, who knew me, and who loved me. My uncle would throw his big arms around me, and my aunt would give me kisses all over my head. And in my squirmy early elementary days, I felt that that was just a little too much, and outwardly I was a little shy and awkward, but inside my heart was melting because it's what I really needed. It is what we really need. Bartimaeus, the son of Timaeus, the blind beggar, needed something like that. It's amazing for someone who cannot see. What he really needed was to be seen. Now, he was heard all right, as Kelly mentioned in her time for children. He was heard all right. Twice he's shouting out, Jesus, Son of Nazareth, save me. Save me. Jesus, Son of Nazareth, Jesus, Son of David. He was heard all right. And you know what he was told when he was heard? You know it. Be quiet. Shut up. You're a blind beggar. You're the most outcast of the outcast. You got 2.5 out of 3 strikes on you. And the umpire is almost ready to call the trigger on the full third. You are the voiceless. Stay quiet. Because you know what? We don't have time to care for you because you're almost dead anyways. He calls upon Jesus, Son of David, restorer of fortunes, and he cannot be quieted. There was something about him that wanted to lean into Jesus' presence, wanted to trust that here is someone who can deliver me. And Jesus hears him, says, call him to me. And the only thing he possesses in his life, he leaves behind. He gets up, drops his cloak, and leans forward into Jesus. And that leaning into Jesus activates a transformation in his life. Yes, he does see again, but something more profound happens to him. He joins a community that's along the way with Jesus to a destination to which they are not sure what it is, and yet they have one another, and they're on the way together. And that's what we have, folks. Good people of Messiah. That's really the only thing we have. Is we have our ability to lean in and trust Jesus and walk with one another along the way. To be seen, to be known, to be loved, so that we might see and know and love others. That's really all we got in these days. There's nothing else that is solid and secure. There's just that. And you know what? That's enough. That is enough. In the midst of our heartbreaks, the ups and downs of these past months and years, the uncertainty about the future, what is enough is that Jesus sees us, knows us, loves us, and we can do the same with one another. That's enough. In fact, that's what I was reaching around for in the dark in the theater Friday night. Just that sense of being known and loved. I had a little bonus. There was someone sitting next to me that I could hold hands with. But that's a sign of that greater love that God has for all of us, to keep us together as we walk along the way. Thanks be to God that that's what we have. Together, let's say, Amen.